Hi, trees often come in the spring potted in fiber pots at the nursery. I'm Scott from GARDENWORKS. I want to show you the best practices for planting a tree that's been potted in a fiber pot. Planting trees that have been potted in a fiber pot should be treated a little differently than planting trees that have been grown in a pot for their entire life. Trees planted in a fiber pot were grown out in a field at the grower or the nursery and then harvested usually in the fall or early winter and then stored in a cooler. That's normally how it's done. And they remove the tree from the ground, and it's called bare root harvesting. So there's no soil, they shake it all off. The tree can take that because it's dormant, it's not growing, it doesn't need to draw much moisture or nutrients from the ground. When we receive the trees, bare root, they're almost ready to break dormancy. As soon as they break dormancy, they really can't afford to be out of soil. So we pot them into pot with soil, and then once they're in that pot, they start to grow new roots. As they grow new roots, those roots become critical for keeping the plant hydrated and providing nutrients and sustaining growth through the year. If the plant is removed from the pot after new growth has started, and especially if they've broken dormancy and there's new roots, you can easily damage the roots and cause the plant to go into shock, and quite likely that could be fatal. So the best practices for this I will go through and see if we can get everybody to be successful growing their fruit trees and their fiber potted plants. Well, the first tip when dealing with a plant in a fiber pot is don't carry the plant around by the plant or by the stem. Carry it around by the pot. That way you won't have the plant get pulled out of the pot inadvertently. So that's number one tip. The number two tip is when you're ready to plant, a really great idea is to soak the fiber pot in a bucket or a tub of water for about 24 hours before planting. That'll get the fiber of the pot it'll be wet obviously, and it'll break apart much quicker. It'll biodegrade much quicker. If you leave it completely dry, there's a chance it'll actually create kind of a barrier to growth over time. All right, you got your tree, you're ready to plant that. You're picked a great spot in your garden, a well-drained soil and a bright sunny spot for most fruit trees and most flowering trees as well. And so a couple steps to do. First is add a little bit of organic matter to the soil, and I recommend just put a layer of organic matter over top and then dig it in, and at the same time you can throw in a little bit of fertilizer. After you've done that, dig a hole that's about twice the size of the pot that you're going to plant, and then we'll be ready to plant. Prepared the soil with some organic matter and some fertilizer, dug it in really well and dug the hole. Now what I'd like to do is actually plant the plant. You want to plant the tree at the same level in the ground so that the ground level is exactly the same as the height of the tree in the pot or where it's planted. You actually can plant a little bit higher because you typically expect it to settle a little bit and you want it to be at that correct level. The rim of the pot, the plant is planted, and it's a rim that you would break it off. You don't want any of the rim to be above ground because that acts as sort of a moisture wick, and the air would dry that pot out instead of keeping it moist and letting it break down. So you just break off that rim. You can also, when the pot's nice and soft, this isn't that necessary, but it's also okay to kind of, once you have the plant in the hole, score the sides of the plant and break them up. The most important thing is you don't want all the soil falling off of the root ball and pulling any of the fresh, small feeder roots off of the plant. You want those to remain on. Well, that's really all there is to it. There's some key differences between how you would plant this plant and a plant that had been grown in a pot and well rooted in the pot versus this tree that was potted into a fiber pot just at the beginning of the season and hadn't had a chance to establish a root system. Pretty straightforward. Don't disturb the root system too much as it's starting to grow, and you'll be off to the races and you'll be successfully growing trees, and in this case hopefully having some tasty cherries within a couple years. Thanks for watching, and don't forget, if you enjoyed this video and want to watch others, subscribe to our YouTube channel.